Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Winnipeg Jets Changing the Game virtual panel. My name is Raquel Payne, and I am the Community Relations Coordinator here at True North Sports and Entertainment, and I will be your moderator for the afternoon. This panel, as well as the stories that the Winnipeg Jets will be sharing throughout the month of March, are part of Gender Equality Month. This is a league-wide initiative that aims to promote and celebrate women in the sport, inspire others, and promote inclusivity within the world of hockey and our community. I'm very excited to be joined today by some incredible women who truly are changing the game and who can inspire and show other girls the opportunities that are out there for them in the world of sports through their experiences and stories. And now I am joined today by Brigette Lacquette. She was the first First Nations athlete to play on Canada Women's Olympic Hockey Team during the 2018 Winter Olympics, where she won silver with her team. She is a three-time Canada National Women's Team player and currently works as a pro scout for the Chicago Blackhawks. Next up, we have Amanda Chow. Amanda is the Senior Manager of Corporate Partnerships for True North Sports and Entertainment, where she has allowed the opportunity to advocate for Winnipeg and True North at a national level while representing the female voice within the industry. And finally, we're joined by Sherry Shindruck, who serves as the Regional Director of Client Services at Canada Life. And through her own involvement in the sport, is continuously pushing for more female representation in hockey, including the Canada Life Women's Hockey League. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining me. I am so excited to be able to share such an important discussion with you all and hear a little bit more about your careers and your journey throughout the sport. So, Bridget, I'll start with you. Obviously, you've had huge accomplishments in your professional hockey career, from playing in the Olympics to the Canadian national team. You're currently a player in the Professional Women's Hockey Player Association. But through all this, you have really become a platform to help inspire and mentor the younger generation of both Indigenous youth as well as girls. So I'm curious, what was the shift like for you as your role kind of developed from being a player to a mentor for others to look up to?
Yeah, well, I guess for starters, the platform kind of developed throughout the 2018 Olympics. So when I was on the team, I didn't realize that I was the first. So throughout the 2018 Olympics, it kind of blew up, and I started getting contacted to speak at different communities and reserves and schools and whatnot. So yeah, I guess I kind of fell into that role, and then I embraced it. I never had anyone that looked like me in my sport. I didn't have anyone that, faced the type of, that was on the national women's team, that went through the racism and being First Nation and, living in an isolated community. So when I realized I was the first and I started telling my story, I kind of, embraced it. And, it's honestly, it's truly an honor to be able to share my story. And it's one of the best things about the job, is, connecting with the youth and seeing their eyes light up when I walk into the room and I'm talking to them, and then, they can relate to my story. And there's so many aspects of my story that they can relate to. And it's just awesome to see, and to be that person, for so many youth and girls across Canada. It's honestly, it's something really special.
That's amazing. I think it's so incredible that you can kind of be that woman that so many different kind of kids growing up playing hockey can relate to. It's amazing for the sport and amazing for kind of women across the board, I know. Amanda, I'll go to you next. You kind of stepped outside of your comfort zone when you decided to kind of change the path of your career a little bit in 2018 and enter the world of hockey and professional sports. As someone who didn't necessarily grow up playing hockey, what was it like integrating into the industry without that kind of background?
Thanks, Raquel. You hit the nail on the head. I wasn't maybe your stereotypical hockey professional going into this career, as I didn't play hockey growing up, but I'm a born and raised Winnipegger. I'm immersed in, hockey was around growing up. And I think being a Winnipegger, I really embraced that, because taking it back to 2018 when I decided to join the team, we were just kind of coming off of a huge playoff run. And I remember as a Winnipegger watching that play out and really feeling the invigoration of the city and downtown. And so even though I didn't have necessarily that connection to the sport of hockey, I really had that connection to this is what hockey represents in this community and what it can do. And by stepping out of my comfort zone, I, came from marketing prior to coming to sales. So marketing and some of my client service skills were adjacent to what I do now. But I think for me, it was a bit of a leap, a bit of a bet on myself, and something that I really wanted to bring forward is, finding that passion within the fandom and the community side of hockey.
Excellent. I think that's so important for people to know that you don't necessarily have to have all the hockey knowledge in the world to come into this industry. There's so many opportunities for everyone with a varying level of hockey knowledge or sport knowledge in general. So I think it's awesome to have that kind of background as well. Sherry, going to you, I've heard a little bit about your story. There's no doubt that you have a lot going on in your life. From a successful career, you've been a coach, a caretaker, you're involved in your own community. I'm curious, what makes hockey such a big priority for you and something that you find value in creating time for?
Well, thank you. And I'm like Amanda. I didn't grow up. Hockey wasn't part of my growing up. But I would say there's two elements. First is my son Max, and supporting him and encouraging him. And maybe the reason I say that because I guess it was when I was 8 years old. My parents signed me up. They signed me up for ringette. Their female hockey wasn't really developed back then, and my parents put me on the ice in my pink helmet and my figure skates, and I quickly felt out of place. I didn't want to be there, and I never went back. And that is actually one thing I do regret. So for my son, his hockey career started a little bit similar. He's very much like me, and not with the pink helmet or the figure skates, but but I felt I needed to encourage him, and I didn't want him to quit. So to help him out, I decided to sign up for skating lessons, and I had recreational skated as a kid, but and I knew hockey from a sense of I did start playing in my 20s sponge hockey, which is quite big in Winnipeg, and ball hockey. So I had some hockey sense and hockey skills, but I needed to start to coordinate that together with some skating skills and on the ice. So I did that, and I also decided to sign up to be a coach. I thought, again, how can I help my son and get him out there? And being part of it was a great way for me to do that. So at the same time, while I was doing that to support him, I also chose to, in my 40s, sign up, and I convinced one of my girlfriends to join. So I'm fortunate. Canada Life does host and sponsor a women's hockey league. So it's a great league. It's a perfect league for starting out because you got the A to Z of experience. So me on the lower spectrum there for sure, but we signed up and we started playing. And hockey is our Friday nights is our women's hockey league with Canada Life, and it's become just such an important part. It's a group of ladies. I get to spend more time with a friend that I really wasn't finding time as your lives get busy. As much as we have fun on the ice and developing our skills there, we have just as much fun or more when we hit that dressing room, and just the support we have and the ladies that have come together. We've kind of coined it our therapy night, and it's something that I don't want to miss. My friends don't want to miss, and it's just become a really big part of my life now. So,
excellent. I think that's awesome to hear. I think you kind of assume sometimes that if you weren't a kid growing up playing a sport, there's never the right time to get into it. But I love that you proved that wrong, and
can
kind of see the value it spreads across your entire life more than just the game. It helps in so many different aspects, and I'm really happy to hear that Canada Life has such a great support, and that you ladies are enjoying your time there. So a couple questions for everyone. I'll kind of go around. So we'll start with what moment in your career stands out to you the most, and why? Maybe Bridget, we'll start with yourself.
Yeah, I guess what moment in my career? Well, I would say when I made the Olympic team. That's something that I, worked for my entire life. I played hockey since I was 5 years old, and coming from the community that I came from, like I grew up in a community of 150 people and 4 hours north of Winnipeg, so pretty isolated. And there's so many moments in my life where I guess it kind of made it difficult to want to continue to play hockey. So I have had to face racism for the first time when I actually had to play in Winnipeg. And when I was playing in a summer hockey, tournament, and being called racial slurs throughout my life, like it's definitely, something that was, as a kid, something hard to like get through, I guess. But luckily I had such a fantastic support system to be able to get through that. And, they always gave me great advice to, whether it's like beat them on the ice or, don't give up, like just being told that repeatedly, it always kind of, helped me, get through those hard times. And then as I got older, going away to college and having to, be away from, my norm of, I was always surrounded by my family and cousins and everything like that. So, and having to move away from Mallory to play hockey is, definitely something that I had to, get through, I guess. And then, obviously making that jump from, college to the national team, and then being centralized for the Olympics and trying out for the Olympic team. And, it's definitely hard to have to go through that. But again, I had such a fantastic support system. And then I finally made the Olympic team. And that's when I kind of embraced the role of being a role model and being that person that I didn't have growing up in sport.
Amazing. I think kind of being able to see it all come together as an Olympic athlete, I'm sure it kind of put everything into perspective that you've dealt with in the past, and you got to kind of just enjoy that moment of all of your successes. So that's amazing, and congratulations on all of that, of course. Amanda, how about yourself? A moment that kind of sticks out in your career, and how come?
So I think for me, moments that stick out into my career, I'll always kind of attribute them to whenever I made a significant change or a significant step. So as I kind of mentioned previously, my transition into the world of sports was super intimidating, and I think sort of anxiety ridden at first. And then, getting situated in the world, getting situated in the role, working regionally with partners, and then later also transitioning to the next step of working nationally with partners was a big moment for me. And I think the feeling that I attribute to both of those moments, again, is that like fear and of the challenge and the anxiety. And I think looking back on it, I almost appreciate that fear, because now in retrospect, looking at it, I can say that fear is healthy. It was normal. It meant that I was growing and challenging myself and pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. And usually I think if you feel that way about something, it's probably because it's what you're meant to do. And, hopefully you won't regret it. You probably won't. So that's kind of what I tell myself now. If I come across those challenges and changes, it's probably good and probably healthy. So just do it.
Yeah, it's definitely hard in the moment to kind of see the other side of it, but it does make a huge impact when you come out and you see kind of what you've accomplished and what you've pushed through. And I think that speaks to sport, to our careers and life in general. And Sherry, how about yourself? Anything that kind of jumps out at you about your career?
Yeah, it would be actually the start of my career at Canada Life. It would have been Great West Life back then, but I started it with my mom, and basically, she will tell you that I got hired on her merit. So in her nice way, it was always, Sherry, you need to do a good job. And so in the first few years, I found myself having the opportunity to demonstrate some ability, and I did find myself moving through some different roles and gaining more responsibility. And I know my mom was proud, because 2 years into my career, my mom passed away from cancer, and so I really hold those, and I treasure that time that I got to work with her. And I know that she would be really proud of where I've come now. And I think the opportunities that I've had with my employer have really grown me. I think I started off a young shy girl, and it's given me the opportunity to work in many different roles, a lot of lead roles, which give me the chance to influence and motivate. And I think that that ties back to my willingness or my ability to just try things like getting into hockey later in my life and taking on a coaching role with my son's team without having that prior experience and skills. So, but that would be definitely the one for me.
I think that's wonderful that you can kind of always carry your mom throughout your career with you, and you have those memories of her that are associated with your career as well. I think that's wonderful. So now, obviously, the title of this panel is Changing the Game. You are all game changers in a sense, but I'm wondering, what can we do to encourage others to become game changers across the sport and within the industry? Maybe, Amanda, I'll go back to you for this one.
All right. Well, thank you for calling us game changers. Like, appreciate that. I'm like, oh, thank you. So I think I think it's very simply put. I think encouraging the building and fostering of diverse teams where you're welcoming different, people from different walks of life, different perspectives, and then amplifying those voices and those people and making them feel comfortable to speak up and share their opinions. I think not just in the sport of hockey, but I think in the professional world, in whatever business you're in, I think that only strengthens you the more diversity you have and representation.
For sure. And Bridget, how about yourself? How can we add to the list of game changers in our communities?
Well, I think Amanda hit it the nail on the head. Like, it was, I guess hiring diverse people and trusting their voices and amplifying it. Like, with Chicago, like I came in, I'm the first, Indigenous woman to be a pro scout, and it was scary, for me. Like, I didn't know what to expect when I came in, but, they made sure, they made me feel welcomed, and, they asked me my opinion on things, like, and they still do. Like, my bosses, they text me and ask me about a player and like, what do you think of this one? And it's all just your gut instinct or like what you see on the ice, and they trust your opinion, and, you feel heard. And so that's definitely helped me, I guess be shy about, speaking up and telling them exactly what I think. So just, I guess, making them feel heard.
Amazing. And that's an incredible accomplishment for you, and hopefully the first of many more to follow. Sherry, anything to add on that one? How we can gain more game changers in the industry?
Well, I just want to make a shout out to Bridget. Congratulations, because I know we got to meet. I got to be involved in a charity event, the Hockey Helps the Homeless, and Bridget was one of the pros that was brought in. And I will let you know, Bridget, that when that announcement came, it flew through our circle of ladies of just like how great was that? So we followed that right away. But yeah, a few things for me I would say is, obviously, like I talked about, Canada Life sponsors a women's hockey league. So organizations have the opportunity to get involved. And what I like about the Canada Life League is allows players like me to get involved in the sport and grow in the sport and have fun in it. So I think there's an opportunity there. And then just back to the Hockey Helps the Homeless, which Bridget would know, we rallied very late in the prior to the event to bring in a women's division. It started out with two teams, and it was a conversation that my friend that I brought into hockey took back to the organizer to really push to bring in a couple female teams, and it brought excitement to the event. I think in less than 72 hours we rallied and we had 30 ladies ready to join, and in the 3 weeks prior to the event, I think we just raised just over $25,000. So next year, I know we want to try to continue that, if not maybe grow that women's division. So again, when I think of organizations, there's sponsorship that can be done within that to promote it and bring more females to be able to play in that event as well.
Awesome. I love that connection of the two of you with the charity event, and such an impactful event in itself. And as you mentioned, it kind of goes much further beyond those tournaments there. kind of looking ahead, we see a lot of growth and support in the industry and across women's sports in general right now. What's the vision for sports, for hockey, for women's hockey in the next 5 years? Maybe Bridget, kind of being on the hockey side yourself, we'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, well, I guess the goal for our PWHPA, our association, we want to create a sustainable league for women. And, right now, there's ladies that play in the league that, are nurses or like going to med school, or, they have full-time jobs, but they're working full-time jobs, and they're also playing, and they want to showcase, the talent of women's hockey across, Canada and North America, I guess. So, for national team members, they're pretty fortunate to be able to, training is their full-time job. So they get treated like, professionals, but then there's also that, majority of, the association that all have full-time jobs. So, I guess in the next 5 years or down the road, that's the goal, is to create a sustainable league for women in the future, and not just, it's for the next generation. It's just inspire the next generation. So, to show them that, there's something that you could work for, rather than, you go to college and then that's it, right? And for men's hockey, you can aspire to play in the NHL. So it's just, creating a professional league for women.
Absolutely. I think that's something that is very, very attainable, and I hope to see as soon as we definitely can there. Amanda, how about yourself on the career side? Kind of what do you see for women in the sport and hockey industry?
Well, I'd say if you had asked me 5 years ago, if I saw myself in working in hockey and sport, I don't necessarily know that I would have seen that for myself. And now it's funny because I can't see myself doing anything else. So I think what I hope for, the professional world of hockey, is that more people can see that for themselves in 5 years. And I think maybe open themselves up to the possibility that there is somewhere that you can fit in. There's ways to get involved behind the scenes. There's so many career paths involved in professional sport and hockey. So I certainly hope to see more people open themselves up to that, and that, the sport itself on the professional side can continue to grow by bringing in those different voices.
Excellent. And Sherry, how about yourself? What can we expect or hope for in the next 5 years here?
Yeah, and I think I look at it maybe probably from a different lens, and maybe where hockey starts for a lot of kids, and it is from the kids' lens. And I know the pandemic has been tough, and I would say on our community club hockey, there's many community clubs we haven't been able to run the events, the tournaments that they would house. And I know for my son, his best years, his favorite years were playing for his local community clubs. So I would hope that's that we can get back to that. I mean, it's hard when you've had people that were there volunteering to try to get those volunteers back. But as Amanda said, there's so many roles to play, whether it's at the professional, at the level that Amanda is working, or at a volunteer level within the club. But I'd really like to see the club hockey still survive, and because I feel that's where a lot of it starts for so many of for so many of the kids. So
definitely, I think they're obviously the next generation of players in every league across, and we want to be able to foster that and continue their growth as well. So Sherry, question for you: as you've mentioned, you have been a coach for your son's team before, and I'm kind of curious, what kind of impact do you think it has on these young boys playing or girls watching to see a woman behind the bench and in that kind of position?
Yeah. So I would have coached, I took on coaching at the younger level. I mean, I knew I didn't come in with the skill set, but I feel I had transferable skills. Even if I just think about my role as a leader, it's encouraging, it's motivating. And as I said, this story with my son, to get him out there, he needed some of that encouragement and motivation. So I think at that young age, I think females play a big role. Even just if I think back to some of the coaching I did with hockey and soccer, a lot of it was their first time being out in a group like that. They needed help getting just encouragement to step on the ice, never mind figuring out how to shoot the puck, or starting to develop skills. It was just the ability just to get out there. So I think the females, we have a softer touch, and I do feel, and I know many kids had sort of gravitated to me because of just that soft encouragement to get them out there. I know my son is he's proud and he wants me there, and that means a lot. And I know he said he's had a lot of his friends say that they wish that their moms were out there doing that as well. So I think it's an important. I think it's really important that they see it, and I know too when I did choose to coach, I had to go through a coaching clinic, and I remember walking into the room and I looked up and there was 30 guys in the room and just me, and I thought, wow, like there isn't enough women in this, and it's so there's opportunity there, and I think we can play a role again, even if it isn't the highly skilled role. There is a role to be played.
I love what you said, and kind of the idea that it's about being the right person for kind of those roles or those jobs, and it doesn't necessarily matter about your gender or your knowledge in some circumstances. Bridget, kind of in a similar situation as you've mentioned, the first Indigenous woman pro scout in the NHL, a fairly male-dominated field as well. Kind of what barriers have you faced because of your gender, and how have you been able to overcome them?
Well, I just started. So my contract started in July, but I didn't start scouting until October. So the first half of the season went pretty smooth. Like I guess it was intimidating a little bit to go through. To walk into the ring, to walk into the scouts room and be the only woman in there. But I also had, I always cross paths with a couple of coworkers that were amateur scouts for Chicago, and, they've helped me out a lot and, kind of directed me here and there. So they were super helpful. And lately, I guess, as I cross paths with a couple of people that are, a couple guys that are younger around my age that become scouts now that are retired from hockey and stuff. So, they've been super welcoming and making conversation. But to be honest with you, it's a little difficult when it's the older generation, I guess, when the guys are, 50, 60, 70 years old, and you're walking into the room and it's kind of just feels like an old boys club, right? They all know each other, they all talk and everything like that. And actually there was one incident when I went down to Seattle and I was 3 weeks ago, and I went in, couldn't find the scouts room. I was walking with another guy that was a goalie scout for Nashville, and we couldn't find the room, and they were sending us everywhere around the rink. And finally I walked over to the side, and there was four scouts that were all talking to each other. I tapped the one and asked him where to go, and he's like, oh yeah, he's super helpful. He was like, hey, you just got to go to that. He just pointed to where it was, and the Nashville scout was talking to all the other scouts because he knew them. And then I started walking, and there was this older gentleman that was there, and he mistaken me for a worker or someone to, he's asking me about pizza. And, it kind of irritated me a little bit. I kind of was like, well, I was like, I don't know, buddy. I don't work here. I was like, you know more than me. And then one of the other scouts, I kind of tapped him and told him who I was. And I just kind of walked away and because usually I go into these, I go into the rink, I go write down my lineups, and I just sit there and I watch. I don't talk to anyone because I'd rather not talk to anyone. Right. So I just want to go there and do my job to the best of my ability. So then in the intermission, I went and introduced myself to him, and I was just like, I was kind of laughing. I walked up to him and I was like, hey, are you the guy looking for pizza? And I just I'm Brigette Lacquette. It's nice to meet you. And then he was like, oh, I have to apologize and blah, blah, blah. And anyways, he's like, you're a scout. And I was like, yep, I am. And then I kind of just walked away from him. And he must have felt really bad, because in the second and third intermission, he came over to my side of the rink, and then he apologized again. And again, he was trying to make himself, he was trying to explain the situation and stuff, which was making it worse for himself. But he was like, there's no excuses. And I was like, yeah, there isn't. And I guess you just can't make assumptions. But that was kind of the one incident that I kind of found funny, but it was also kind of irritating for me. But then all you have to do is laugh about it, right? So that was the one incident a few weeks ago, and now it's just I I just like to go into the rink. I watch hockey, I do my job, and I try to do it to the best of my ability for my team. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's super important, and kind of as you handled the situation, to face it, not just kind of brush it under the rug. So for you to be able to kind of go and introduce yourself and take it into your own matters and own hands, I think that's awesome. And as you kind of talked about, having those allies too are huge. I know as we can build that community, we'll kind of build the support and strength we have within it. And now, Amanda, kind of what advice do you have for both the women, the girls, the men, the boys, anyone watching who wants to help create that kind of welcoming environment and become those allies, whether it's in the office or on the ice? How can they help?
Well, I think this ties in very well to Bridget's comments and that story. I was hoping he was going to bring you pizza there. That's what I was waiting for. I was like, I hope that was his like bridge to smooth everything over. But I think that story resonates with a lot of, women or different groups, because I think sometimes people confuse allyship with wanting to be absolutely politically correct and doing things by the book the right way. And yes, that's important, but I think to be genuinely a great ally to women and to other groups around you, it's to actually genuinely want to get to know them as people, not just for what they look like, but to get to know their story and their background, because everyone's unique. Even their story is probably unique as well. So I think bridging that gap that we have of understanding and genuinely wanting to listen and get to know people, lead with empathy is always, a big thing for me. And I think, ask tough questions. Like sometimes we want to tiptoe around some of these issues, but I think to that point with Bridget's story, I think addressing things head on and, saying what's not okay but accepting people at the other end is super important in building allyship.
I completely agree. And I think it's something that will take time, but if everyone's willing to kind of put in that effort and put in that time, we'll definitely make some progress there as well. So for the next part, we're going to go through kind of some rapid fire questions for you all. Some a little bit light-hearted as well. So for this round, I'll start with Sherry. Do you have any affirmations or mantras that you carry through with you day to day?
Oh, I definitely have one. People that know me, they probably hear it, but it's just being a mom, a career, just lots on the go. It's, lots to juggle. And mine is, it's good enough. And that it's good enough, it comes with a bar. So it depends on the what, the bar may be higher on that. It's good enough, but trying to recognize that in the ability to be able to get at everything that needs to be done. But that's mine.
I like that one. And Bridget, how about yourself? Any affirmations or mantras, mottos?
Well, I guess as of lately, in the last, 4 or 5 months, I've tried. I struggle. I struggle with anxiety. I struggle with my mental health, and in the last year, because I didn't get centralized or make the Olympic team. I kind of went through this, low point where I've always used hockey as an outlet for myself, like right through. I've always just went on the ice and forgot about everything, and that was dealing with. I guess I haven't really dealt with it much because I've always played hockey and trained and stuff like that. So over the last, I guess it was 4, 5, 6 months, kind of when I realized I needed help. I started to treat myself kinder, I guess, because I'm always, I'm always very hard on myself with everything that I do. And I kind of reached a point in November where it was okay, I'm going to start, speaking positive words every morning to myself. And it started with, I kind of joke with one of my friends, and it was, you're beautiful and you're going to do great today. It's like a kind of like a meme where you see this little chubby bunny looking at himself in the mirror, and it's just the cutest thing. But that's kind of something that always, stuck with me for the last 4 or 5 months.
That's awesome. I think kind of having that mindset when you're starting your day or when you're having a rough point in the day, it can make such a huge difference going forward. Amanda, how about yourself?
So for myself, especially in sales, I always kind of remind myself to celebrate the small wins. That's really important. I think, we're faced with a lot of adversity. You hear no a lot, you get rejected a lot. It's not for the faint of heart. So I always kind of go into things saying, what is success for me, and defining that, and, celebrating those little things that get you there eventually. You're not going to all of a sudden have this like huge win that you're super happy about, and if it does happen that way, that's great, but often it is those little wins along the way that really carry you through.
Another great one. I think there's a couple takeaways from those for sure on my end, at least. I would definitely use all of those in different situations. Next question: who has inspired you the most throughout your career? Bridget, why don't we start with you on that one?
Yeah, I would say my parents. They did everything they could to, I guess, get me through hockey and put me, in this place to be successful. I guess, they had us when I have a sister and a brother, and they had us when we were young. They got married at 19, 20, had kids at 20, 21, and my mom didn't finish school, and then she ended up going back to school, becoming a teacher. My dad drove the bus while she was going to school, and then finally, when I was a freshman, my dad decided to go back to school and get his, I guess his levels and everything like that, and now he owns a construction business. So they did everything they possibly could. Like to this day, I don't even know how, they put us through. We played on all these teams. They always made sure we had the best equipment, because my dad was always like, I don't want you to have any excuses for not doing well. So, as my parents, just showing me the importance of hard work and perseverance and what, being determined can get you in life. And that's something that, that I'll always cherish for the rest of my life.
Excellent. Amanda, how about yourself? Your biggest inspiration there?
So I'm really fortunate that both in this career and my previous career path, that I've been surrounded by really amazing women, very strong women, very determined, and that's been amazing to learn from everyone there. But I think, similar to Bridget, when I think about the constant inspiration and at that, core, is my mom. She very similarly gave up a lot to, give myself and my siblings the life that we have. And I think, especially as a woman, she always, stressed the importance to us of your own independence and your own identity. So, again, at my core, I feel like she really inspired me to always push forward and make sure that I was doing things for myself.
Wonderful. And Sherry, how about yourself? Someone you look up to for inspiration?
Yeah, I'd say that the same as a lot of people that, depending on where I've been at stages in my life, have helped me. But I would say, in my career, for sure, I worked under two different female leaders, and for a good chunk of my career, and really strong ladies. Tough, but they really stretched me, and they saw potential. So they looked to give me the opportunities that stretch me, and I know that where I've developed in my career is as a result of those projects that they either put me on, or the conversations that they brought me into, and the opportunities that they gave me. So yeah, that would be mine.
Wonderful. And Sherry, this next one, we'll start with you as well. How can females ensure that they have a voice at the table, whether it be in hockey, in the sports industry, or really just any field in general?
Yeah, and I think I take it back to where I started when I stepped on the ice and stepped off the ice and never went back to it. But have confidence and be there to encourage others, because I will tell you, I think I mentioned the friend that I made join with me when I started hockey in my 40s. She still says to this day, like, best thing that has ever happened to her, the community and the friendships that she's gained there. So I think it's about encouraging, being there and encouraging others and helping.
Wonderful advice. And Bridget, how about yourself? how can we make sure that all the women's voices are heard across the industries and sports in general?
I guess, honestly, just speaking from experience, I think it's just speaking up when you feel the need to, and always being authentic to yourself and not trying to be anyone that you're not. For me, it's honestly, for my job, it's trusting my instinct, trusting my gut feeling of a player, and telling my bosses exactly what I think. The reason why they hired me was to have a different perspective on players, because I feel like there's always, again, I feel like a lot of the scouts are all, buddies, and they all talk and things like that, where, you bring someone new and a fresh set of eyes, fresh hockey IQ, and it's definitely helpful. So just, speak up when you feel the need to, and I guess make sure you're heard.
Excellent. And Amanda, how about yourself?
I think it's to trust that you have a seat at the table for a reason, and again, to Sherry and to Bridget's points, like you have a unique perspective and a unique voice, so you're there for a reason, and to have that confidence to speak up and to say something and think about it, rather than what are the bad things that could happen, that if I speak up, think about how you'll feel if you don't speak up and maybe regret it later, not having said anything. So I think that's just having that ability to stand your ground and be who you are.
Excellent advice from everyone. I think that's all stuff that no matter where you are in your career, your hockey or sport field, I think it's always going to be relevant. There's always going to become new challenges and new ways to kind of push yourself in that regard. What is the best advice you have ever received? Amanda, maybe we'll go back to yourself to start this one off.
Sure. So the best advice I've ever received or heard is to embrace your own personal story, your own personal struggle. You don't have to emulate other people's stories. You can own what you have to say, and really carry that forward and be unique. I think that's the best advice.
That's awesome. And Bridget, how about yourself? Best advice?
I'd say going back to when I faced racism for the first time, my dad told me to beat them on the ice. And, it's not just only for hockey, but I think it's for, everyday life. It was always, be so focused, on yourself and on your goals and your own success. So that's what it meant was, be so focused on yourself. So when people say things like that too, it doesn't matter what they say, because you'll be winning in the long run. So I'd say beat them on the ice.
It's an excellent one that I think, kind of as you mentioned, can relate to so many different things in life. And Sherry, how about yourself? Best advice you've received or I guess heard of?
Yeah, and I think there's a theme here, and I heard this one probably 2 or 3 times already just before even coming on this panel. This is new for me, a new experience, so obviously maybe a little nerves setting in, but it's be yourself. And when I've heard that just this morning a few times, it was like, well, that should be easy. That's the easiest thing I can do, is be myself, because that's who I know best. So I think it's so it goes with what Amanda and Bridget said, is be true to yourself and stick with that. So that's that one I repeat often now.
Excellent. Kind of a theme through those that I think is just emphasizes the importance of all of it as well. A fun one here. How do you celebrate your biggest accomplishments, whether it's personal, professional, or just kind of anything going on in your life? Bridget, maybe we'll start with you for this.
I'd say, thinking back on all of that, I guess it would always be celebrating with food. Really love food. Going out for dinner, or even celebrating with my family. Like, my family's really close, and my dad's really close to all his brothers, and I have like 26 cousins on my dad's side. So it's a really big family, and they love the big family get-togethers where someone cooks enough for everyone, and then everyone comes to the one house, and it's usually our house. So yeah, it's celebrating with family and friends, and going out to eat a good meal.
I don't think you can ever go wrong with a good meal there. So that is an excellent answer. Sherry, how about yourself?
Well, I'm going to take mine back to hockey because it's still fairly new in the career here. But for me and my son, how we celebrate a goal is we each pay each other $5.
Interesting. So does that lead to just kind of passing the $5 back?
It has. It actually has.
That's awesome. That's definitely a unique one that I haven't heard before. That's awesome. And Amanda.
So I think for me, it's to actually just take a moment to celebrate in whatever that means. So I think sometimes I can get really fixated on when bad stuff happens or, a loss or something like that. You spend way more energy on that than you actually do when things go right. So for me, actually taking a moment, doing something for yourself in whatever makes you happy. So for me, it's usually a crisp glass of wine on a Friday. So that's probably what it is.
I really enjoy that. I think, it's important to kind of sit and soak in those moments that you definitely earned and are important there. So closing question around the table again for everyone. What is the advice that you would give to your former self? So kind of reflecting back, some kind of advice you would give yourself that I know is going to relate to our viewers as well. Sherry, why don't you start us off?
Think easy for me. It is Sherry. Don't worry about the pink helmet. Ask for hockey skates and go back on that ice and try. I really, that is a regret. I really wish I would have been pushed harder to do that. And I think it's just to say, like, the encouragement to people to it's never too late to try, and trying can be fun. So that would be mine.
Excellent perseverance. I love that. And Bridget, how about you?
I guess mine would be have fun, and don't be so hard on yourself. Again, I was my biggest critic. I've always been very, very hard on myself, and sometimes I'd always kind of lose that focus of why I'm playing the game, or why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think that you should always have fun with everything that you do. And if you're not having fun, then what's the point of doing it? So I think that's why I played hockey for so long. And I guess that's why I'm also working in hockey and being a scout, because I love doing what I do, and it's great, and and I'm having a lot of fun doing it.
Great. I'm happy to hear that you're able to kind of embrace the enjoyment of the sport now a little bit more as well. And Amanda, piece of advice for your former self.
So my former self actually did get this advice, but I think I'd maybe reiterate this because I don't think maybe at the time I fully understood. And I think it's just, if you're, headed into a new industry, into a new field, is to be patient with yourself. So I think, especially if you're someone who's used to achieving a lot and, moving on to the next, I think, someone told me at that point, be patient with yourself. And I think now retrospectively, I definitely understand that more, and it means something completely different looking back. So I think, everyone starts somewhere, and it's always a journey. So you want to take it in and just do your best.
Amazing. Well, ladies, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and chat today on such an important discussion, and hopefully we have been able to inspire or encourage our viewers today by sharing your stories and your experiences. So thank you so much for being a part of the Winnipeg Jets Gender Equality Month. It means a lot to us.
We defy roles, challenge fear, shatter barriers. Keep up the fight, climbing new heights. We walk past the doubt, cast aside the critics, show what leaders look like. We can, we have, we will. We are a movement, and we have the power to change everything.